It was a bold move for Capcom to switch to the first-person perspective in Resident Evil 7, but the gamble paid off and the game redefined the horror genre. Resident Evil Village builds on the foundation that Resident Evil 7 laid and improves on some of its criticisms. It also introduces a shock in the game, changing up how some of the mechanics work, and delivers an experience that fans of the franchise will definitely enjoy. Here is our review of Resident Evil Village. Now, the story of Resident Evil Village kicks off a few years after the events of Resident Evil 7. If you haven't played Resident Evil 7, then there is a recap at the beginning of the game to bring you up to speed. Since the story and some key events in both the games are connected, it's best if you have some idea of what's going on to get a complete grip of the story. It's an engaging story with quite eventful twists and turns, and there are some aha moments for fans of the franchise to enjoy. Without spoiling anything, you once again don the role of Ethan Winters. He is trying to lead a normal life with his wife Mia and their newborn daughter Rose. One evening, his house is attacked by none other than the series veteran Chris Redfield. Chris kills Mia and kidnaps Ethan and Rose. As expected, the convoy is stopped and Ethan awakens at the edge of a village in search for his daughter. Now, the village, as you have probably seen from the trailers and the demo, is filled with all kinds of nasty. The village is looked after by the mysterious Mother Miranda. Miranda's 4 children rule different parts of the village. You have Castle Dimitrescu, ruled by Lady Dimitrescu, and her 3 daughters. Heisenberg has his factory where he produces some pretty nasty stuff. You also have House Benevento, if I'm pronouncing that right, which is essentially the lady in black and her puppet bride doll, and Moreau, who looks after the river or the swamp area in the game. So each of these areas has its designated villain. The premise of the game starts off pretty simple. You find your daughter, but I can confidently tell you that the story takes some unexpected turns. If you are a fan of the franchise, this is one of the best Resident Evil stories out there. If you have only played Resident Evil 7, then there is enough here to keep you hooked. I don't want to delve more into the story as it is truly one of the biggest highlights of the game. Now, moving over to the gameplay, while the core gameplay is the same as Resident Evil 7, Village has made some much needed changes. Resident Evil Village is a first-person survival horror game with a lot of action thrown into the mix. While Resident Evil 7 relied on action set pieces and a few molded enemies here and there, Village has some more emphasis on the action and also has a variety of enemies. The environments in the game are divided into 4 areas, all of which are connected by a central settlement of the village. The game is a lot more open than Resident Evil 7 with larger areas to explore, some of which you can only access when you gain a new key or a new ability. After each major encounter, you will find yourself back in the settlement area. The game is linear, which means you can't tackle any of the 4 areas in any order you prefer. Each area you visit brings something new to the table. Castle Dimitrescu, for example, is a massive mansion with hidden chambers and is full of puzzles. Adding to the tension is Lady Dimitrescu herself and her 3 daughters that follow you in the castle, much like Mr. X from Resident Evil 2. Her daughters are more agile in that they can move faster and, get closer to you a lot faster. House Benevento, on the other hand, has you sneaking around and gives you the feeling of an escape room. The beauty is that each of the 4 areas has its own charm, its own USP to keep things fresh, and each boss battle is unique as well. I don't want to delve more into the areas or the details of the variety of the enemies you will encounter, but know that the variety is enough to keep things fresh throughout the 12 hours it took me to finish the game. The demo has shown off the Lycans and some of the sword-wielding hooded figures and some more flying enemies, but that's just the tip of the iceberg of the variety of enemies that you will encounter. The inventory management system in the game has changed for the better. No longer are crafting items, keys and collectibles a part of your main inventory. They have a separate space and your main inventory is dominated by your weapons, the ammunition and health items. Crafting items have a separate tab and so do the other collectibles. There is also a separate tab for the collectibles that you can sell to the Duke for Lei. Lei is the currency in the game. And speaking of the Duke, he is a new mysterious character who sets up shop at convenient locations throughout the game. He not only sells you arms and ammunitions but can also store your excess baggage, upgrade your storage capabilities and also cook food for you. Yes, if you hunt for fish, chicken, meat in the game, then the Duke can cook up some interesting recipes, and these recipes act as permanent character upgrades. For example, it'll increase your maximum health or let you take less damage when blocking, so on and so forth. You can also upgrade your weapons, and you can sell your collectibles to the Duke for currency, which is lei. The new inventory management system along with the new shopping mechanics is a welcome change from Resident Evil 7. Moving over to pacing, Resident Evil Village is a well-paced, offering a good mix of action, puzzles, mini-bosses, and then the final boss for each area. The only downside is that once you've defeated the caretaker of a particular area, you can't return to that area, so you may want to search it thoroughly before you enter the final combat. On the PS5, there are some DualSense features implemented as well, but it isn't as detailed as what we saw in Returnal, for example. You have the adaptive triggers that offer different resistance based on the guns you are using. It's a small touch, but it does add to the immersion. It's tough to talk more about the gameplay of Resident Evil Village without spoiling it, so let me leave you with this. Dead Space was one of my favorite games in the horror genre until Dead Space 2 came and dialed everything to 11, and that's exactly what we can say about Resident Evil Village. It takes everything that made Resident Evil 7 a great game and makes this one even better. Moving over to graphics, now the game looks stunning. It has implemented ray tracing on the PS5 and each area has its own characteristics. Special mention should be given to the characters in the game, such as Lady Dimitrescu, whose facial animations when she's up close to you are really detailed and look absolutely stunning to the point of giving you chills down your spine. Sure, there are some texture pop-ins here and there, and we've noticed some low resolution textures as well, but the game does support ray tracing on the PS5 and overall is a visual treat, especially when you consider the diversities in the environments that you encounter. Moving over to sound, the sound design of Resident Evil Village actually proves why sound design is so important in a game. You are walking through the settlement, it's empty, it's silent, and all of a sudden you hear the sound of a single lichen roar, and suddenly the room is full of lichens and they are all around you and they're going to chase you, and it just adds to the tension. And this minimal yet effective sound design is implemented throughout the game. In Heisenberg's factory, you have the sound of the machines moving, and all of a sudden you will hear the roar of one of the enemies that's coming to attack you. It is quite brilliant, and I recommend you play this game with a pair of headphones to truly immerse yourself. So here's answering the main question. Should you play Resident Evil Village? Well, if you enjoy horror games or if you like first-person games, then yes, absolutely. Resident Evil Village is a culmination of everything the developers have learned over the past 2.5 decades with this franchise. The move to the first person adds to the immersion. The shop and inventory management are a welcome change, and the pacing of the game is spot on with a story that will definitely appeal to fans of the franchise and newcomers alike. So that was it, guys. That was our review of Resident Evil Village. As always, you can let us know what you thought of this video in the comment section below, and for more from the world of technology, you can subscribe to our channel.